restorers with heightened scrutiny, focused on a woman's gaze and unearthed a secret that history had desperately tried to conceal. The Restoration Laboratory at the National Museum of African American History and Culture was a sanctuary of hushed concentration, the silence punctuated only by the gentle whir of the ventilation system. Dr. Maya Collins meticulously adjusted the settings on her digital microscope, her eyes trained on the photograph from the Harper collection. The 1851 daguerreotype presented a scene seemingly unremarkable for its time. The Harper family, owners of a flourishing cotton plantation nestled in the heart of Georgia, posed stiffly for posterity on their sprawling veranda. Mr. and Mrs. Harper, seated with an air of self-importance, their 3 daughters arranged like porcelain dolls in crisp white dresses, and the plantation's overseer, standing rigidly to one side, his presence a symbol of power. Behind them, lurking in the shadows as if attempting to vanish into the very fabric of the image, stood a young enslaved woman holding a fan, her expression a stark contrast to the practiced solemnity of the Harpers. For decades, curators had dismissed her, their attention fixated on the Harper family's historical prominence as pioneers in the early industrial cotton boom. Almost finished with the Harper collection? Dr. Marcus Webb inquired as he entered the lab, bearing 2 steaming cups of coffee. Just putting the finishing touches on the digital preservation, Maya replied, accepting the offered coffee with a grateful smile. But there's something off about this one. She gestured towards the screen, where the high-resolution scan displayed the enhanced image in breathtaking detail. Marcus leaned in, his brow furrowed in concentration as he studied the photograph. What caught your eye? Her, Maya said, using the cursor to highlight the enslaved woman. The catalog simply labels her as unnamed domestic, but look at her eyes. She zoomed in, the cutting-edge software bringing the woman's face into a clarity previously unattainable. Where the other figures stared blankly at the camera, adhering to the conventions of long-exposure photography, the enslaved woman's eyes possessed something extraordinary, an intensity, a palpable presence that seemed to bridge the chasm of time. I don't believe her slight blur is from movement during the exposure, Maya continued, her voice laced with intrigue. I think they deliberately tried to obscure her, and now I'm determined to find out why. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Maya adjusted the enhancement parameters, pushing the technological boundaries to their breaking point. As the woman's eyes sharpened on the screen, a hush fell over the 2 researchers. Reflected in the depths of her dark pupils, barely perceptible yet undeniably present, was an anomaly, something that defied the very laws of possibility in an 1851 photograph, the unmistakable image of flames. The next morning, Maya sought the counsel of Dr. Eleanor Brooke, the museum's esteemed head curator and a leading authority on antebellum photographic techniques. Reflections in eyes are common in modern photography, Eleanor explained, her gaze fixed on the enhanced image displayed on Maya's tablet. But in 1851, exposure times were prohibitively long, and the resolution was far too poor to capture something like this. It should be impossible. And yet, there it is, Maya insisted, unwavering in her conviction. And there's more. She swiped to another enhanced section of the image. I've identified her. The museum catalog lists her as unnamed. But take a look at this. She pointed to a minuscule object adorning the woman's neck, previously invisible to the naked eye, now rendered with startling clarity. A delicate pendant bearing engraved initials. L.J. Maya stated. I cross-referenced them with the Harper plantation records in our archives. Her name was Lucinda Jackson. She was 22 years old when this photograph was taken. Eleanor looked visibly impressed. What else did the records reveal about her? Almost nothing. Just a line item in a property inventory, Maya replied, her frustration palpable. However, the Harper family correspondence mentions a fire at the plantation 3 months after this photograph was taken. A significant portion of the estate was destroyed. And you believe what we're seeing in her eyes is a reflection of that fire? Eleanor asked, a hint of skepticism in her voice. That's impossible. This photograph predates the fire by months. I know it defies logic, Maya admitted. But what if she knew something was going to happen? What if she was involved? Eleanor studied the image once more, her academic skepticism battling with the compelling evidence before her. We need more information about Lucinda Jackson and the true events that unfolded at Harper Plantation in the summer of 1851. There's one more thing, Maya added hesitantly. The Harper collection was donated by Margaret Harper Davis in 1982. She's the last direct descendant of the family, still alive and residing in Atlanta. She's 91 years old. Eleanor considered this. Contact her. Perhaps family lore passed down through generations might shed light on what we're seeing. Sometimes, oral histories preserve what official records erase. As Maya departed Eleanor's office, she retrieved the enhanced image of Lucinda's eyes on her tablet. The tiny reflection of flames seemed to flicker with a life of its own, as if Lucinda Jackson was still trying to communicate her story, still waiting for someone to recognize what had been concealed in plain sight for over 170 years. The Harper estate, an imposing Greek revival mansion nestled behind ornate iron gates in Atlanta's prestigious Buckhead district, stood as a testament to a bygone era. As Maya traversed the circular driveway, she couldn't escape the weight of history, the realization that the opulence surrounding her was built upon the forced labor of countless individuals like Lucinda Jackson. Margaret Harper Davis, a diminutive, frail woman with piercing blue eyes that immediately assessed Maya, received her in a sun-drenched conservatory. Seated in her wheelchair, she possessed an air of quiet authority. I'm intrigued by your call, Dr. Collins, Mrs. Davis said as a caretaker served tea. The Harper collection has been at the museum for 40 years. Why the sudden interest in one particular photograph? Maya carefully chose her words. We've been digitizing the collection using new technology that reveals details previously invisible. I'm particularly interested in an enslaved woman named Lucinda Jackson, who appears in an 1851 family portrait. A flicker of emotion crossed Mrs. Davis's face. A fleeting glimpse of recognition, perhaps concern. Lucinda, she repeated softly. My grandmother spoke of her. A troublesome woman by all accounts. Troublesome? Maya asked, maintaining a neutral tone. That's how family stories described her. Too educated for her own good. Someone had taught her to read, which was illegal then, of course. Mrs. Davis paused to sip her tea. Why your specific interest in her? Maya produced her tablet and displayed the enhanced photograph. We found something unusual. In the reflection in her eyes, it appears to be flames. Yet, this photograph was taken 3 months before the documented fire at Harper Plantation. The teacup clattered against its saucer, the delicate porcelain trembling in Mrs. Davis's unsteady hand. Her caretaker rushed to offer assistance, but the elderly woman waved her away. Family history is more complicated than museum catalogs suggest. Dr. Collins? She said, her voice gaining strength. The official record states there was one fire at Harper Plantation in August 1851. The truth is, there were 2 fires. She reached for a small bell and rang it. The caretaker reappeared, carrying a carved wooden box, which Mrs. Davis opened with trembling hands. Inside lay a leather-bound journal. My grandmother's diary, she explained. Charlotte Harper was 14 when the photograph was taken. She kept this hidden her entire life. Maya accepted the journal reverently, opening it to a page indicated by Mrs. Davis. April 7, 1851. Maya read aloud. Father had the photographer come today for a family portrait. Lucinda was forced to stand with us, though she had been punished just yesterday. Her eyes frighten me. She looks at us as though she can see something we cannot. Maya turned the page, continuing. April 9, 1851. There was a fire in the night. Father says it started in the kitchen, but I heard him tell Mother it was deliberately set. Lucinda has disappeared. Father is in a rage. He says she will be made an example of when found. The first fire was small, Mrs. Davis explained, deliberately set as a distraction so Lucinda could escape. She was never captured. And the second fire? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Davis's voice grew even softer. That came 3 months later, much larger. It destroyed the main house and the processing barn. The family always believed Lucinda returned to finish what she started. Back at the museum, Maya and Marcus pored over the Harper family records with renewed determination. Charlotte Harper's diary, now a treasured addition to the museum's collection, provided crucial context previously absent from the official narrative. Listen to this entry, Maya said, carefully turning a brittle page. July 29, 1851. Father has received a warning. A letter delivered by a freeman from Savannah. It said only, justice returns on the summer wind. He has doubled the overseers and locked away all the lanterns at night. Mother pretends not to be afraid, but I see her watching the tree line at dusk. And then the second fire happened on August 2nd, Marcus noted, consulting the timeline they had meticulously constructed. Exactly when the quarterly cotton shipment was being prepared. But what about the reflection in Lucinda's eyes? Eleanor asked, joining their research session. Even with this new information, it doesn't explain what we're seeing. The photograph was taken before either fire. Maya had been wrestling with this question. I have a theory. The daguerreotype process was incredibly complex. After exposure, the image had to be developed using mercury vapor, then fixed. What if the plate was exposed again during this process? Perhaps accidentally or deliberately, a double exposure? Marcus considered this, his brow furrowed. But that would mean someone wanted to superimpose flames into the portrait. Who would do that and why? Maya turned to another entry in Charlotte's diary. April 15, 1851. Mr. Gillespie, the photographer, has been arrested. Father says he was part of the plot, that he helped Lucinda escape. They found abolitionist pamphlets in his boarding house room. The photographer, Eleanor whispered, her eyes widening in realization. He must have doctored the image somehow during processing, created a message hidden in plain sight. A message, or a warning, Maya added. Look at the composition of the photograph again. Lucinda is positioned directly behind Mr. Harper, almost like a shadow, a conscience, and her eyes, containing the fire, are staring directly at the viewer. It's as if she's saying, see what's coming. They worked late into the evening, meticulously examining every facet of the photograph and cross-referencing it with historical records. The Harper Plantation fire of August 1851 had been documented as an accident, but Charlotte's diary suggested a coordinated act of resistance. As Maya was preparing to leave, Eleanor called from her office, her voice laced with urgency. You need to see this. She had uncovered a newspaper article from the Savannah Republican dated August 5, 1851. Destructive fire at Harper Plantation coincides with similar incidents at 3 neighboring estates. Authorities suspect coordinated arson. Vigilance committees forming to apprehend suspected insurrectionists. It wasn't just one plantation, Maya realized, the pieces falling into place. It was an organized resistance. And somehow, Eleanor added, her voice filled with awe, Lucinda Jackson and a sympathetic photographer left behind evidence hidden in an image that everyone would see, but no one would truly notice until now. The Georgia Historical Society in Savannah housed records that had yet to be digitized or transferred to the National Museum. Maya spent 2 days immersed in their archives, tirelessly searching for any mention of Lucinda Jackson or the photographer, Samuel Gillespie. In a collection of legal proceedings, she found what she sought. Gillespie's arrest record and testimony. The photographer vehemently denied any involvement in aiding Lucinda's escape or in the plantation fires. He was eventually released due to insufficient evidence but was professionally ruined by the accusations of being an abolitionist sympathizer. More intriguing, Maya discovered a collection of letters from an underground abolitionist network operating in coastal Georgia. One letter, dated March 1851, mentioned a plan to assist an enslaved woman, described as exceptionally literate and determined, escape from the Harper Plantation. The letter was signed simply, G. Could Gillespie have been a member of this network? Had he intentionally created a photograph with a hidden message, a warning encoded in Lucinda's gaze? Maya's research was interrupted by an urgent call from Marcus. You need to return to Washington immediately, he said, his voice taut with excitement. We found Lucinda Jackson. 24 hours later, Maya stood in the museum's research room, her eyes fixed on documents Marcus had unearthed in a recently acquired collection from a black church in Philadelphia. The first African Presbyterian church kept meticulous records of formerly enslaved people who sought refuge in the North, Marcus explained. Look at this entry from September 1851. The yellowed page listed new arrivals assisted by the church. Among them, Lucinda Jackson, age 22, formerly enslaved by the Harper family of Georgia, assisted with lodging and employment as a seamstress with the Henderson family. She made it to Philadelphia? Maya whispered, her voice filled with emotion. And there's more, Marcus continued, turning the page. She gave testimony about her escape and the resistance network that aided her. The church recorded it as part of their abolitionist activities. Lucinda's testimony recounted her literacy, secretly taught by Mrs. Harper's sister, who held Northern sympathies. She described how she had used this forbidden knowledge to relay messages between enslaved people on neighboring plantations, coordinating a resistance effort that culminated in the August fires, acts of economic sabotage designed to strike at the heart of the plantation system. Most remarkably, she mentioned the photographer. Mr. Gillespie told me to look directly at him, to hold my gaze steady, even though it was forbidden, she stated. He said, let history see you. When the family wasn't looking, he showed me the glass plate, pointed to my eyes, and whispered that he had captured my fire, that someday someone would see. A chill ran down Maya's spine. The photographer had deliberately created this anomaly, this impossible reflection, as a form of documentation and resistance, a message sent across the ages. What happened to her after Philadelphia? Maya asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Marcus smiled. That's the best part. She married a freeman named Henry Williams in 1853. They had 4 children. I've traced her descendants to the present day. Maya, her great-great-great-granddaughter, is a history professor at Howard University. Her name is Dr. Josephine Williams. Dr. Josephine Williams's office at Howard University was a haven of knowledge, filled with books and historical photographs, a testament to her expertise in 19th-century resistance movements. She listened intently as Maya recounted her discovery. My family has always maintained oral histories about an ancestor who escaped slavery, Josephine confirmed. But we had no documentation, no proof beyond family stories. The name Lucinda was passed down, but we didn't know her full name or where she had been enslaved. Maya opened her laptop and displayed the enhanced photograph. This is your great-great-great-grandmother, she said softly. Josephine's hand trembled slightly as she reached out and touched the screen, tracing the outline of Lucinda's face. She looks like my aunt, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Together, they examined the enhanced image of Lucinda's eyes, the impossible reflection of flames burning brightly. Maya explained their theory about the photographer's deliberate manipulation. It's extraordinary, Josephine said, her voice filled with awe, a form of resistance through documentation. Gillespie couldn't openly oppose slavery in that environment, so he created this subtle act of defiance, preserving evidence of what was to come. And your great-great-great-grandmother was central to this resistance network, Maya added. The fires at multiple plantations were coordinated acts of economic sabotage. Josephine nodded. Family stories mentioned that Lucinda had organized other enslaved people, that she used her literacy to coordinate resistance, but we never knew the details. She paused, lost in thought. History tends to focus on dramatic escapes or violent uprisings, but resistance took many forms. Economic sabotage was a powerful tool. These fires would have disrupted production, damaged stored cotton, and created financial losses that struck at the heart of the plantation economy. The Harper family never recovered financially, Maya confirmed. Their subsequent cotton shipments fell dramatically. By 1860, they had sold half their land. A successful operation then, Josephine said with quiet satisfaction. As they continued to share information, piecing together Lucinda's story from both official records and family histories, a more complete picture emerged, one of strategic resistance, coordination across plantations, and the crucial role of allies like the photographer. We need to update the exhibition, Maya declared, her voice filled with conviction. The Harper collection has been presented as a record of plantation owners, but it's actually evidence of resistance hidden in plain sight for over 170 years. Lucinda would appreciate that, Josephine replied. According to family stories, she always said, truth hides in the details. You just need to look closely enough to see it. The museum's conservation lab buzzed with activity as Maya's team meticulously examined all the photographs in the Harper collection using their enhanced technologies. They discovered that the photograph of Lucinda wasn't the only one containing hidden messages. In another image depicting the plantation's cotton processing barn, they found tiny markings scratched into the silver plate, a crude map of escape routes and safe houses. In a portrait of Mr. Harper, they detected almost imperceptible alterations to his eyes, giving him a subtly demonic appearance detectable only under magnification. Gillespie was waging a subtle war through his photography, Marcus observed as they catalogued each discovery, creating an official record for the Harper family while simultaneously embedding subversive messages. Meanwhile, Eleanor was collaborating with Dr. Williams to curate an exhibition titled, Hidden in Plain Sight, Visual Resistance in Plantation Photography. The centerpiece would be the enhanced image of Lucinda Jackson, her eyes with their impossible reflection of flames, staring back at visitors across time. As the exhibition took shape, Maya received an unexpected call from Margaret Harper Davis. I've been thinking about our conversation, the elderly woman said, her voice frail but resolute. There are additional family papers I didn't show you, documents my grandmother kept separate from what was donated to the museum. 2 days later, Maya found herself in Mrs. Davis's library, carefully examining a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon. They were correspondences between Charlotte Harper and her aunt in Boston, the same woman who had secretly taught Lucinda to read. My grandmother was torn, Mrs. Davis explained, raised in a slave-owning family but influenced by her northern aunt's abolitionist views. After the fires, after Lucinda escaped, Charlotte began questioning everything she had been taught. Oh, Dr. Collins, those letters. The letters revealed a young woman's evolving moral awakening. In one particularly poignant letter, dated 1853, Charlotte wrote, I sometimes think of Lucinda and wonder if she found the freedom she sought. Father still rages about her betrayal, but I cannot help thinking that the true betrayal was ours, against her humanity. Why are you sharing these now? Maya asked gently. Mrs. Davis was silent for a moment. Family legacy is a complex thing, Dr. Collins. For generations, the Harpers have maintained a narrative of genteel plantation life disrupted by outside forces. But that narrative was built on a foundation of convenient omissions. As the last Harper, perhaps it's my responsibility to finally tell the complete story. She gestured towards the letters. Take these. Include them in your exhibition. Let people see not just the resistance of the enslaved, but also the moral conflicts within the enslaver class, the small cracks in the system that sometimes allowed for human connection across its divisions. As Maya carefully packed the fragile letters, Mrs. Davis added, I've often wondered about Lucinda's descendants. What became of them over the generations? Would you like to meet one of them? Maya asked. Dr. Josephine Williams, Lucinda's great-great-granddaughter, is working with us on the exhibition. For the first time since they'd met, Mrs. Davis looked genuinely shaken. I don't know if I have the right or the courage. History isn't just about the past, Maya said softly. Sometimes it's about what we choose to do with it now. The conservation lab's lights were dimmed as Dr. Eleanor Brooke meticulously positioned the original daguerreotype of Lucinda Jackson under a specialized microscope connected to a spectral imaging system. This technology can detect substances present on the photographic plate that are invisible to conventional methods, she explained to Maya and Marcus. If Gillespie manipulated this image deliberately, there might be physical evidence on the plate itself. Daguerreotypes are silver-plated copper sheets polished to a mirror finish. Any alteration would leave microscopic traces. The team watched in silence as Eleanor methodically scanned the plate, focusing particularly on the area around Lucinda's eyes. After nearly an hour, she straightened with an expression of triumph. Look at this, she said, pointing to the monitor, which displayed a false color image of the scan results. There are traces of a specific chemical compound around the eye area, potassium ferrocyanide. It wasn't typically used in daguerreotype processing. What would it do? Maya asked, her voice filled with anticipation. It could create the appearance of light or fire when applied carefully to specific areas of the plate during development, Eleanor explained. It's definitive proof that Gillespie deliberately manipulated this image. This wasn't an accident or a double exposure. It was intentional, artistic, and political sabotage. Meanwhile, Dr. Williams had been conducting her own investigation, tracking Samuel Gillespie's movements after his professional disgrace in Georgia. She discovered that he had eventually relocated to Boston, where he continued his work as a photographer but also became openly involved with abolitionist causes. In an 1857 abolitionist newspaper, she found a small article about an exhibition of Gillespie's work titled Unseen America, which purportedly showed the true face of the South's peculiar institution. The exhibition had caused controversy but was championed by prominent abolitionists. He continued his resistance through photography, Dr. Williams reported during their research meeting. Once he was in the North, he could be more explicit about his views, but he had begun his activism years earlier, when it was far more dangerous. With each discovery, the story grew more complete. Gillespie had been part of an underground network that helped Lucinda escape. He had used his professional skills to create subtle acts of resistance, embedding messages and symbols in photographs commissioned by the very people whose system he opposed. But the most remarkable discovery came from an unexpected source. Margaret Harper Davis contacted Maya again, this time with information she had found in a hidden compartment of an antique desk. A single letter from Samuel Gillespie to Charlotte Harper, dated 1855. I know you have questions about what happened, the photographer had written. Know that she is safe and flourishing in her new life. The fire in her eyes that day was real, not just my artistic manipulation, but the genuine flame of a spirit that refused to be extinguished. Remember what you saw, Charlotte. Remember and question what you've been taught. Charlotte had kept this letter hidden her entire life, a secret connection to a moment when her understanding of the world began to fracture. 3 months later, the exhibition, Hidden in Plain Sight, Visual Resistance in Plantation Photography, opened at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. At its center stood an interactive display showcasing the original daguerreotype of the Harper family, alongside the enhanced digital version, revealing the flames in Lucinda's eyes. Visitors could use a touchscreen to zoom in on different areas of the photograph, discovering the various ways the photographer had embedded subtle messages of resistance. An entire section was dedicated to the technical analysis, providing irrefutable proof of the deliberate manipulation of the image, alongside historical context about photography as a tool of both documentation and subversion. The exhibition extended beyond the Harper photograph to explore other examples of visual resistance throughout history, highlighting the creative ways oppressed people had used images to communicate, document, and resist when direct opposition was too dangerous. On opening night, the museum hosted a panel discussion featuring Maya, Dr. Williams, and, to everyone's surprise, Margaret Harper Davis, who had agreed to participate despite her frail health. The auditorium was packed with scholars, students, and members of the public. What we've discovered challenges our understanding of resistance during slavery, Maya explained to the audience. We often think of resistance as dramatic acts, escapes, rebellions, but here we see something more subtle yet equally powerful, a conspiracy of documentation. A photographer and an enslaved woman collaborating to create evidence that would speak long after they were gone. Dr. Williams spoke eloquently about the importance of reclaiming Lucinda's full humanity and agency. My ancestor wasn't just escaping for herself. She was part of an organized resistance network, using her forbidden literacy to coordinate economic sabotage across multiple plantations. The fires were strategic attacks. On the foundation of the plantation economy, silence descended as Mrs. Davis prepared to speak. 91 years old, she needed assistance to reach the podium, but her voice, once she found it, was surprisingly strong and resolute. The Harper family name adorns buildings and streets throughout Georgia, she began, her gaze sweeping across the room. Our history has been sanitized, scrubbed clean of the uncomfortable truths, our wealth rarely questioned. For generations, we maintained a carefully curated narrative about our past, a comforting myth we told ourselves and the world. But that narrative was false. She paused, her eyes locking with Dr. Williams. I can't undo the sins of my ancestors, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. But I can acknowledge the truth they tried so desperately to bury. Lucinda Jackson was not property. She was a woman of extraordinary courage and fierce intelligence who fought for her freedom in ways my family preferred to forget. As she slowly returned to her seat, Mrs. Davis performed an act of unexpected grace. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and took Dr. Williams' hand in hers. Two women, separated by generations, connected across the gulf of time, bound together by a daguerreotype and the hidden message blazing in a pair of defiant eyes. After the panel discussion concluded, a long line of visitors formed, eager to view the exhibition. Many stood captivated before the enlarged image of Lucinda's eyes, their depths holding impossible flames of resistance. A message sent across the decades finally received and understood. She knew exactly what she was doing when she looked into that camera. Dr. Williams commented to Mia, watching the riveted expressions of the public. She was testifying to her own defiance, creating undeniable evidence that couldn't be erased. And now, Mia replied, a note of triumph in her voice. Her testimony is finally being heard. 1 year later, Maya stood in the hushed stillness of the conservation lab, carefully examining a newly acquired artifact. It was a small, leather-bound journal, recently discovered in the dusty attic of a Philadelphia home undergoing renovation. Authenticated as belonging to Lucinda Jackson Williams, the journal contained entries written between 1853 and 1875, after her daring escape to freedom. Listen to this entry, Maya said, her voice filled with anticipation as she addressed Dr. Williams, who had become not only a respected colleague but also a cherished friend during their shared journey of discovery. April 7, 1856. 5 years since the photograph. I dream sometimes of that moment, standing behind them, looking directly into Mr. Gillespie's lens. I knew what we had planned, the risks we were taking. I knew what was coming. He told me to put my thoughts of fire into my eyes, to let my gaze speak what my voice could not utter. Today I received word that the photograph still exists in their house, that Charlotte looks at it often. I wonder if she sees what I was trying to tell her. She knew. Dr. Williams whispered, her voice filled with awe. She was consciously creating a record, a testament for future generations. The journal provided the definitive confirmation of their long-held theory. Lucinda and Gillespie had deliberately collaborated to create a powerful visual testament of resistance, embedding it within an image commissioned by the very family that sought to enslave her. The journal also meticulously documented Lucinda's life after achieving freedom. Her marriage, the birth of her children, her tireless work with the Underground Railroad, and her eventual role as a respected teacher in Philadelphia's first school for black children. It told a story not only of her courageous escape but also of her unwavering activism and lifelong commitment to liberation for others. Maya and Dr. Williams channeled their years of research into a groundbreaking book titled The Fire in Her Eyes: Photography, Resistance, and Memory in American Slavery. The book ignited a national conversation, bringing renewed attention to the ingenious ways enslaved people resisted oppression through documentation and testimony, often cleverly utilizing the very technologies and systems designed to control them. Margaret Harper Davis passed away peacefully 3 months prior, but not before establishing the Lucinda Jackson Truth and Reconciliation Fund, a foundation dedicated to researching and preserving stories of resistance and supporting education about the brutal realities of slavery and its lingering aftermath. As a vital part of this mission, the Harper Mansion in Atlanta had been transformed into a state-of-the-art research center and museum. The very room where Maya had first interviewed Mrs. Davis now housed a compelling exhibition on economic resistance to slavery, with the story of the coordinated plantation fires serving as its dramatic centerpiece. Within the National Museum, Lucinda's photograph had become one of the most frequently visited exhibits. School groups regularly brought students to contemplate the image of a woman who stared into a camera in 1851, her eyes ablaze with defiance, flames that represented both the coming storm of rebellion and the unquenchable fire of resistance that burned fiercely within her soul. History isn't just what happened, Maya often told visitors during her insightful gallery talks. It's what was documented, what was preserved, what was seen and ultimately recognized. For far too long, we've looked at these plantation photographs and seen only the enslavers, relegating the enslaved to mere background elements. But when we look more closely, when we literally magnify their presence, we see a radically different story begin to emerge. And at the heart of the exhibition, Lucinda Jackson's eyes continue to blaze across time, no longer overlooked, no longer relegated to the shadows, but finally seen and understood in all their defiant, deliberate fire. Each visitor who pauses before her gaze becomes part of the vast audience she and Gillespie had envisioned when they so bravely collaborated on their act of visual resistance. The powerful message hidden in her eyes had finally been delivered, 170 years after she had sent it into the future. I was here. I resisted. I had agency. And now, at last, you see me.